This is Trevor Murdoch, the NWA World Heavyweight Champion. You guys are listening to Live and in Color with Wolfie D.
Hey, this is Jimmy Street, host of the Live and in Color with Wolfie D podcast. Hear the life and times of professional wrestler Wolfie D. From his time in the territories with PG-13 to his time in WWE, ECW, WCW, TNA, and more. Nothing is off limits and nothing will be held back. Thanks again for tuning in. Here he is, Wolfie D.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome once again to the Live and in Color with Wolfie D podcast. Today we welcome, well, simply put, the National Wrestling Alliance Heavyweight Champion of the World, Trevor Murdoch. Trevor, how you doing today, sir?
Oh, I'm doing great, man. The weather's perfect, a little crisp outside. I'm a big ball of joy.
That's awesome. Thank you for coming on.
Trevor, how you doing, buddy?
Man, thank you for having me on here, Wolfie. It's good to talk to you, buddy.
Yeah, man. Good to see you, man. It's been a minute, man. It's been a minute since we spoke. We wrestled. I think TCW was the last time that you and I touched horns, right?
Yeah, man. It's that's been a minute. Shoot, how long has that been? We're talking 6, 7, 8 years, maybe.
Yeah, probably something like that, man. That was, back before I tore my arm up, I tore my leg up. Hell, I'm a piece of work now. What I want to ask you, man, is the first question I have for you. I was trained by Gypsy Joe. I'm sure you know him.
Yep.
But the thing is, for me, man, Harley Race. You got trained by Harley Race, man. That's pretty damn cool, man. Can you? I can tell you about my times with Gypsy Joe, and I trained in a ring that was like full of cat piss. it was disgusting. I mean, it was in West Nashville, and things like that. What was it like to train with Harley, man?
Harley was a tough cat. You know what I mean? Like, obviously, when I came into training for him, your body's not made to be in professional wrestling shape. No. You know what I mean? And he saw a young guy that full of piss and vinegar, and man, that he worked me out. Like his routines simply. I mean, you started with at least an hour of calisthenics outside the ring. And now when we're talking about like the school, like everybody would kind of imagine, you know, Harley Race having this big, huge, beautiful building of a school, but it was right next to a gym, and it was a very narrow, probably a 20 by, probably a 40 by, I don't know, 120 foot room, basically, that housed Harley's office, all the gear, the ring, and all of Harley's memorabilia. So right in front, you had this like huge patch of carpet, basically, and that's where everybody kind of crammed in, and just, I'm talking up downs, mountain climbers. And he had a referee there that was a former Marine, and he was this his name was Skippy, and he was this little guy who was a great amateur wrestler in high school, but he's a former Marine, and he would sit there and do the calisthenics with you, but he would be drinking a cup of coffee and smoking a cigarette while he's doing it.
How did you find that? How did you get in?
I was wrestling for a couple years before I met Harley. Okay. Basically, my brother, I've always been I've been this tall since I was like 13 years old. I kind of like sprouted and stopped. So my brother ended up getting caught up with this small independent company in St. Louis, and I would do security. One night a wrestler didn't show up, and I was always taking bumps before the matches and after the matches and being the guy's kind of like tackling dummy. The promoter was freaking out and said, you know, hey, you've been training. You got a match tonight. And basically what I could do is get my ass kicked really well, and I could bump really well. I didn't know anything else. So
that's awesome.
I ended up remember promoter Bill Ash?
That name sounds familiar, yeah.
Arkansas, old school wrestler. I ended up getting a booking with him, and you know, he was doing TV, and I was a young guy, and I was like, oh my God, this is TV, even though it was just this regional, basically just local town TV. It was horrible. But I thought it was TV. And we did 3 TV tapings, and at the end of it, I literally got paid, I think it was $8.67.
What?
Yeah, it was my cut from the house. You know what I mean? And we had like an 8-hour drive home. My brother was with me. We got to split like this. It was like $17, and we had to split it.
No shit.
And we made it home on the pennies, literally the pennies in my truck. That's when gas was, $1 something. You know what I mean? It wasn't what we're paying today.
Hey folks, to get your official Live and in Color with Wolfie D merchandise, go to ProWrestlingTees.com/Live Wolfie D. Check it out.
If you're listening to Live and in Color with Wolfie D on Apple Podcast and like what you're hearing, go ahead and leave a 5-star rating. And while you're at it, write a review. Tell us what you liked. Tell us what you'd like to hear in the future. It's very important to us and always appreciated. Thanks again.
Where did the Murdoch name come from?
Man, that was I got an opportunity to go wrestle for WWE and just be a local. And Benoit, I'd gotten back from Japan, and Benoit was actually out there doing his squats, his 500 squats before every match. That was his warm-up.
Right.
And I just wanted to rub in Japan, so I went into the ring and started doing some Japanese exercises and stretching, and I got his attention. Mm-hmm. About 30 minutes later into the conversation, he actually got me a match for Vince and got people to actually look at me.
Yeah.
Steamboat was my agent for the match, and he come up to me, and I was doing Trevor Rhodes at the time. I had blonde hair. I looked just like Dustin.
Right.
And Dusty had a little bit of heat with Vince at the time. And Ricky goes, hey, listen, you might want to go ahead. We might, might want to switch the Rhodes name. He goes, you look more like Murdoch anyway. And he goes, you just don't want that heat. You know what I mean? And I was like, I don't care what the fuck you call me, man. You go, give me the attention I need. I'll show out. You know what I mean? Yeah. And I knew what my job was. I was went in there to wrestle Rob Conway. And my job was to go in there and make him look like $1 million, which I did, and which brought me back to SmackDown the next night. And I wrestled Rene Dupree, and I made him look like $1 million. And Johnny Ace called me into his office and offered me a developmental gig that night. And
that's awesome, man.
Trevor Murdoch from then on.
That's awesome, man. Man, talk about TCW when you and I met.
I only did a couple shots for Matt Riviera down there at TCW. But what made me feel good about going down there was, you had a guy that was investing in his production, but he also had a lot of wrestlers that could work. You know what I mean? That was absolutely my excitement. They had you down there. Tim Storm was down there. He was bringing in names per se that could wrestle. You know what I mean? It was I thought that was, Matt was on his way to be like the next big thing. It stinks that
you know what happened, man? You know what happened? It's a thing that always happens. They start booking their buddies and, think they can, take over or something. I don't know. I've seen it happen a million times, man. It was so, God, man, I hated it. I hated it that they let that go like that. I really did, man, because I thought it had so much potential. What about you?
Well, I thought it had a lot of traction, man. That was especially at the time, there really wasn't an alternative. I mean, there was a couple of shows out there that was trying to step up into the, the number 2 and 3 slot. But what I thought about TCW was that you were able to tell wrestling stories. And to me, that's the true, that's the alternative, in my opinion. Everybody says they're different, and everybody says that, we're not trying to be WWE. Well, I mean, Jesus Christ. I mean, just because you're painting with different colors doesn't mean you're not putting in the same spot. You know what I mean? It's
right.
So I kind of felt like that was the beginning of a true alternative wrestling because bro, we're in a time right now where everybody can, like, you don't have to love just one wrestling company. We got into that mentality because at the time there was only real one option for a while.
Yeah, absolutely, man. All right, so let's talk about this, man. I mean, obviously you're the fucking NWA World Champion right now. How did that come about? I mean, did you get in with Billy Corgan? I mean, how did this happen?
This, honestly, I was actually on my way out. We were at Harley's funeral.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of felt like that was the stamp of, you know, once I didn't start 100% with Harley, but 99% I've been with Harley, you know, my whole career.
Right.
And when, you know, the last couple of years was a little tough on him, and it just kind of felt like, man, the whole phrase, I'm a round peg in a square world.
Yeah.
Really fits me.
Right.
So we were at Harley's funeral, and it was a wonderful gesture for Nick Aldis, at the time was the current NWA World Heavyweight Champion, showed up with Dave Lagana, who was the executive producer at NWA at the time. And at the funeral, you know, Nick kind of just cornered me. He's like, "What are you doing?" And I said, I'm kind of on my way out. He goes, "Why?" And, you know, we had a long talk, and he's like, "Come to Atlanta, bro. Just come down for one show.
Yeah.
If you don't like it, you don't want to be a part of it, be a producer. Just, we need guys like you." And, dude, I walked in the door and thinking I was going to be a producer, and the first thing they asked me was, "Did you bring your gear?" Man, I'm OG. You know, I bring my gear everywhere. Sometimes to the grocery store. You never know. You know what I mean?
Right.
And so that's, you know, one match turned into two turned into things are hot for you. You know, let's see what you do in this spot. And, bro, the people have what brought me back. You know what I mean? And also, too, like, NWA has cut me loose. You know what I mean? You know as well as I do, Wolfie, that in this business, people try to put you in a box or give you parameters to stay in because you don't want to step on someone else's toes. Or
right.
They were like, "Go for it. Get it."
Yeah.
You know, feel it. Like, promos, everything. Like, they don't come up to me and say, you know, "You need to say this, that, and the other," like some of the other companies. They hand me a microphone. Yeah. And it's amazing what happens when you let a wrestler do what he knows how to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, dude, and connect with the people.
Exactly. You know, and, you know, I've told this on this show before of when me and Jamie went to WWE for the first time when it was WWF back then. They had a teleprompter, and they wrote something for us that I was like, "This doesn't even sound like us, man." And we told them, because we were always first take guys. And I told them, I said, "Can you shut that off, please, and just tell us what you want us to say?" and they did, and then we fucking nailed it. You know what I mean? It's like, you've got to let the guys be the guys. You know, I can't speak on something that you're telling me I got to say. You know, does that make sense to you?
100%. It's, you know, it's like when a writer or whoever is trying to tell you what to do in your match. And you're like, "Bro, you're putting your hands on your face and you're rubbing your eyes and you're like, you ain't never been in a fucking fist fight in your life. You're trying to tell me how to handle my business." It's right. You got to. We're finally at an age in the business where promoters are having kind of like no choice. They're like, "All right, let's see what they do." It's a sink or swim scenario.
Well, I mean, the guys that have been over more than anybody, I mean, are the guys that, you know, they're a personification of themselves. You know, it's like it's who they are, but just magnified. You know, that's the guys that get over.
Well, and that's who, you know, the top guys in every. Hey, look, all right, let's just talk about AJ Styles.
Yeah.
He's one of the few guys that's able to walk right into WWE and be a fucking top guy and never had a match there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Why? Because he was able to go out in the world and show the world and let, you know, number one, show the world who he was, but they let him do him.
Right.
Until obviously, you know, they had to that up and start micromanaging him. But you let if you let a guy go out there that you know and trust, and go out there and say, just believe in me and I will take care of business. Right. You can get a lot of success out of you guys, especially guys that are seasoned. You know, some want to call us older, whatever. I don't, you know, if you remember back in the day, the top guys in the business were in their mid-30s.
Yeah.
Early 40s, because you had to live that long just to live life a little bit. You know what I mean? Right. Like real guys that knew how to handle themselves, tough guys that knew the business. You had to live life a little bit. There was, you know, you'd get the anomalies of the guys in their late 20s that were really good, but that was few and far between.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Did you know my boy, question mark, Jocephus? Did you know him?
Yes, I did.
Man, yes, I love that guy more than any person ever in the world. And God, when that happened, it just drove a stake through my heart, man. Can you talk about him for a minute?
What a beautiful soul.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, that's a beautiful soul.
Absolutely.
I didn't know he was a music teacher until I saw him playing on the piano. Yeah. And I'm like, dude, you know how to play the piano? And he's like, oh, yeah, I can play this instrument. I go, really? I was like, you should do something with that. And he's like, well, I am a music teacher. And I was like, are you shitting me? Like, it's just...
Dude, that guy, I'm telling you, man, he would wake up every morning. This was his routine. I don't know if you know this about him. He was autistic. He would wake up every morning, and when I first knew him, he would go downstairs to his little basement where he had a library, and he would go down there. He would read a couple pages out of his book. Then he'd play piano, and just, man, this dude was the smartest dude that you could ever know in your life, man. And what like you said, a beautiful soul, man. I loved him to death. And became good friends with Billy, and, you know, rode all over the world with him or whatever. They did that. You remember that?
Yeah.
They went all across the country or whatever.
What really made me happy was he got hot in NWA. Like, when I was wrestling him, you know, and I thought I was moving up as, you know, the top babyface in the company. Yeah. But when I would wrestle him, I would automatically not become the heel, but like you just couldn't. You couldn't top that gimmick and that character and the way he came across with it. And what it made me feel really good is, this is what I was told by one of the boys, is, you know, he was I believe at another show or at an autograph signing or something, and he looked at his line of people that were standing in line to get his autograph. And at the time, at that particular show, his line was longer than the champ's.
Really?
And, you know, we live for moments in this business. You know what I mean? There's only a handful of guys that go to the very top, and they sit there for years upon years. So we all look for those magic moments. Right. And when I was told about that, it just kind of made me feel good that like such a wonderful person to get that moment. You know what I mean? And realize, like, shit, like I'm getting over, like I gotten over, it's working. You know what I mean? Like, you know the feeling of it. You know what I mean? Yeah. And he really deserved that.
He did, man. And the thing was, Dutch trained him. And then when I met him, going through a little stage of my life or whatever, he came to me, and I'd book him everywhere. I'd book him against me, and I love that guy, man. And I can't believe what happened to him. But
when I moved to Nashville, I moved as a musician, and when I played my very first show in Nashville, I met Jocephus at that show. And he's this guy wearing a flannel shirt and a trucker hat. And then 5 years later, I'm in the wrestling business just a little bit, not like you guys. And I meet him again, and he's like Bruiser Brody. So I think it's arguable that he could be considered a genius, too. He was so smart. I mean, just as
he was very creative.
You know, rest in peace, Joe. I was so happy that he got that spark with the question mark and him and Aaron. I was so happy to see that for him. He, you know, deserved it. Putting that aside, when I think of Trevor Murdoch, I think of what I would consider, like a throwback, the kind that would have existed at any awesome time in professional wrestling. My first memory of you was with Lance as your tag team, and you guys were working back and forth with London and Kendrick. And even though they were doing a little more evolved stuff, that could have existed for Crockett. You know what I'm saying? That could have existed for Bill Watts. That tag team matchup. I always felt like you and Lance were like the new Outlaws. You were the new Rhodes and Murdoch in a sense. Speak on Lance, and maybe if
we felt that way too. It's just we were I guess at a better way to say it, we were victims of non-pro wrestling people not understanding pro wrestling. And writing the show nonetheless.
Right.
It goes back to what I was talking about earlier about a guy that's never been in a fist fight trying to tell me what he thinks I should be doing in the ring. Cade and I, if we were 15 years earlier, we'd have been set for life. When people looked at Cade and Murdoch in the office up there, they heard this Deliverance song in their head. That's what why? I don't know. I just don't. We could wrestle legitimately with anybody. And then when you would throw us in there with guys that we really gelled with, like London and Kendrick, and especially because of the size difference, you could tell 100 different stories with those guys. We were just, ultimately pissed off that they weren't allowing us to tell that story on TV where it meant something. All right, pay these guys, $250,000 a year and don't put them on TV. Why aren't you getting back your money and your investment? Because you fucking won't put us on TV and let us tell our story. I get hot about it because, and it's not that I'm bitter at them. It's just like, man, what a missed opportunity. And I'm just, Cade and Murdoch are just in a long line of other guys too that total missed opportunities, all because the guy that's writing the wrestling program doesn't understand wrestling.
Yeah. I've always said that, man. It's like I never understood it when this thing came into play of, they were bookers back then, and now they're writers, and you cannot sit here and tell me you would want to have someone coaching your football team that had never been to the Super Bowl. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. It just doesn't make sense to me. It's never made sense to me. Why would you want that? I don't know.
Let's if we're gonna unveil the curtain a little bit, you have a whole line of producers that have been wrestlers, that have been successful, and to not listen to those guys and not take their advice into an account of what decisions you're making. It's almost like you want to shoot yourself in the foot.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
It doesn't make a lot of sense, man.
No,
let's talk about this now, man. And I haven't watched the match, and I want to. I'm going to. Again, Jimmy makes fun of me for not keeping up with the current times, but so you win this belt from Nick. I've worked Nick one time, and he blew me the fuck up. I told Jimmy that. He blew me the fuck up. And it was, I don't know, it was an outlaw show somewhere. But, yeah, man, what a great worker, man. And tell me about that match, man.
73 in the Coruscant Ballroom at the Chase, bro.
Yeah.
That's when you hear those words all put together, you automatically think old school history.
Right.
And to walk into that building, to walk into that building knowing that I'm going to be in the main event for the NWA World Heavyweight title against one of the best in the business. You talk about a guy who gets it. You know what I mean? Who gets it and understands it and can go out there and execute. You know what I mean? There's a handful of people in this world that can do that. Nick Aldis is one of those guys, man, on the top level, everywhere he goes.
Right.
So to be, like I said, at the Chase with my family watching, friends at home watching, to, go through a match, dude, that's one of the toughest matches. And I knew it was going to be tough. You know what I mean? Nick is one of those competitors that he just brings, number one, the best out of you, but he expects the best out of you. You know what I mean? Like, motherfucker, you're in the ring with me, you got to step up. And that's what you should. That's what this business is built on. You know what I mean? That we used to have a locker room full of those guys. Right. Whereas now you've got guys that are just, you know, I'm happy to be here and I'm happy to be in my little pond of people that put me over and you know, tell me I am fucking the greatest thing since sliced bread, and I'm just happy with that. Right. I remember when I was younger, like, I just look across the locker room, some of these locker rooms, and I'm like, shit, there's some competition in here. Right. And there's only that handful of guys is now creeping down to one or two guys into a locker room. And, you know, I don't know. I always wanted to be world champion. Well, I mean, I feel like that was always your goal. You know what I mean? Absolutely. And you want to be the best match of the night, not have the coolest move of the night. Right.
Well, that's the thing, man. Nobody gets that anymore. I think I was telling Jimmy about this, man. The way I was trained was, how can I make my opponent look good? I used to think of that, like, okay, I'm going to wrestle Trevor. What can I do for Trevor tonight to make Trevor look good? But then I'm also going to get my shit in, but at the same time, I want to make Trevor look good. I mean, is that a lost art?
Well, it's a lost idealism. You know what I mean? Like, guys don't I'm the exact same way. And most of the time, if I had enough advance notice, I would watch a match or two and find something that you would do that I thought was awesome and want to take a fucking killer bump for it or something and be like, man, I watched your match with so-and-so. Like, I saw you do this. Right. Bro, I got to take that bump. You know what I mean? Like, it's a lost idealism, because now guys are walking in and they're going, what can I do to get over? Exactly. And if you don't look at how to get your opponent over, they don't realize that it takes two. You know what I mean? You can be the guy who does the cool moves in the match, but I want to be the guy that when people are walking out the door, they're talking about my whole match and wanting to buy a ticket to see the rematch. Right. Exactly. You know what? That's the business, right? To get them in every 18 inches. Yep. And I would hope and I would wish that a lot of these younger guys start thinking about, like, how can I bring people in that aren't related to me? Right. Absolutely. And I throw the not related into me because you've been around long enough to know that a guy can, hey, I'm a draw. Well, how many? You got 20 of your family members out there. Like, don't get me wrong. I love the support. Right. But I need somebody else's money that I know. You know what I mean?
Let's take a quick time out and get a word from one of my dope-ass sponsors, and we'll be right back with more Live and in Color with Wolfie D.
This is Steve Bowtie Bryant here. Back in the 90s, I was a pro wrestling photographer for the South, and I released what might have been one of the original sets of indie trading cards. I ran across some of these original sets. They were up in Randall Fanning's attic all this time. PG-13 rookie card, Ricky Morton, George Weingroff as the Sheep, Chris Champion, Reno Riggins, Billy Montana, Gary Valiant, the Scorpion, the Medic, Rick Reynolds, Jeff Daniels, Mephisto and Dante, Ben Jordan, Steve Neely, Marcus Woodrow, Clinton Charisma, Little Farmer John. If you'd like an opportunity to get these cards, contact me now. You can get them for only $49.99. Contact me at stevebowtiebryant at iCloud.com. Get your set now while supplies last.
Hey folks, this is Wolfie D here, and if you are looking to buy or sell a home in Tennessee or Southern Kentucky, you're going to want to call my buddy, the rock star realtor, Benji Bowie. And you say, Wolfie, how do I get in touch with this rock star? Well, you can call him directly at 615-390-8216. You can go to his website, bowiehomes.com. That's B-U-I-E homes.com. Or you can email him at benbowie34@gmail.com. When you need a home, you need the Rockstar Realtor. Benji is a member of Exit Realty's Garden Gate team in Gallatin, Tennessee.
Lou Thez, Buddy Rogers, Dory Funk Jr., Harley Race, Jack Briscoe, Terry Funk, Dusty Rhodes, the Nature Boy Ric Flair, Ricky Steamboat, Sting, Barry Windham, Dan Severn, Ken Shamrock, Jeff Jarrett, AJ Styles, Raven, Kurt Angle, Nick Aldis, and Trevor Murdoch. How cool does that feel to hear your name mentioned among? And I know I skipped some. You know, I didn't go back to Pat O'Connor.
Right.
You know, I skipped people, but I felt like I picked the top there. How does that feel, man? I mean, honestly.
No, dude, it feels awesome. It feels great, but in the same sense, like there's a lot of pressure. I feel a tremendous weight, like, to carry that title, that championship, because of all those names. That's a lot to live up to. But I know I'm not going to have a problem with that. I have a lot of respect for the NWA and the NWA World Heavyweight title. Every wrestler, and I've said this in an interview before, every wrestler, when they come up in the business, has that one world championship, that one world title, whether it be they're a fan of WWE or they're a fan of Impact or they're a fan of the NWA. As they're growing up, you know, they're not going to miss opportunities from other companies, but they all have that one world title that they want to be, they want to have. And that, for me, that was the NWA World Heavyweight title. That was the legitimate tough guys in our business, the guys that could go out there, like the above names that you mentioned, go out there and work for an hour and keep the people involved with it. Today, can that happen? I don't know. I think, you know, our attention span's a little shot.
You know, Trevor, when you say that, man, and Jimmy's heard me say this, man, being the USWA Tag Team Champions meant more to me than being in WWE. It really did, because Memphis wrestling is what I grew up on. So being that tag team champion and being in the Mid-South Coliseum and being at the Nashville Fairgrounds and blah, 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 that meant so much more to me than anything else, man. And it's, like you just said, it's what you grew up on. It's what you wanted.
Yep. Well, and it generates a different type of passion out of you that you didn't know was there. Don't get me wrong. Like, I was excited to be a part of the NWA, but I started realizing, like, I gave a shit about every single aspect of it. Where, you know what I mean? Every other people's matches, how we were being presented in the public. Like, I started noticing, you know, caring again because I knew how important it was and how much it meant to me, and the NWA and how much it means to me.
Let me ask you this. What is it like, because, and I don't know this, working with the Smashing Pumpkins guy? I mean, how is he towards wrestling? I mean, how is he to work for?
Like, at first, you know, you have to get over the fact, because we're all Smashing Pumpkin fans. You know what I mean? I grew up on his music, too. So, absolutely. In a minute, you know, you're like, oh, my God, that's fucking Billy Corgan over there. Right. Like, for real? Like, all right, like, okay, let's go. Let's go test this out. Like, he's in my house. You know what I mean? He's in my world. You know what I mean? Right. And you go up to him and, like, he's not the fucking rock star image that, like, he loves the business and he's excited. Like, he knew about my career and I had never had a ball. Yeah. He's like, man, I remember watching you in WWE. You and Lance were killing it. Blah. I mean, laid it out for me. Even my little short stint in TNA, he brought that up for what I was doing there.
What did he grow up on? What was his wrestling background? What made him want to do this?
NWA, man.
Okay, all right.
He's like, that was one of the things, like, I think that's one of the reasons, obviously, why he bought the NWA, because of what he grew up on. Like, Billy's a historian. Right. Like, he loves history. And the fact that he was able to purchase the NWA and have almost a living history excites him. On top of the fact, like, he's a true pro wrestling fan. Like, and I'm not talking like, oh, he saw Stone Cold Steve Austin flip people off and thought, you know, he's not the tax-time promoter. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, he's a student of the game. And he understands, like, the rock business is a little bit like the wrestling business at certain times, and the wrestling business is like the rock business. But he understands that, like, okay, I've gathered these guys around me that I trust and know the business, and they care about it as much as I do. And he listens. Now, we may not always get our way.
Yeah.
But he is an open fucking door. And
that's awesome.
You know as well as I do, like, how important that is. And you would think a guy that's traveling all over the world, that's got multi-platinum albums, you would figure you'd have to talk to an assistant, the assistant's assistant,
right,
to get a callback time. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I've got his number on my phone, and he picks up 90% of the time. And when he doesn't pick up, it's because he's doing something, and he calls me back.
Yeah.
I give a shit about the guy. Because he shows that he cares about me and what I'm doing. And he listens to my, like, I may not get what I want every time, but at least he listens to me and gives me enough respect to go, okay, all right, let's think about this, though. And, you know, and there's times that I brought it up to him. Hey, man, like, we need to really think about it this way. And, oh, shit, I didn't look at it like that.
So did he come to you and be like, hey, I'm gonna put the strap on you? I mean, did he come to you?
No, he it's not that he did but didn't. You know what I mean? Like, it was one of those scenarios where I think that they were having, you know, the conversation of what was going on, and they were looking at the landscape of what our business is doing and how I was connecting to the people.
Right.
And yeah, he, you know, called me and said, you know what, I think this is what we're going to try. And we're going to see what happens from here. You know, he never said he was going to do this. Trevor, this is what we're doing.
Right.
This is what we're going to try. And if it works, we're going to try something else.
So the picture, and I have to, you know how this goes, Trevor, man. If I don't say it when I think of it, I'll forget it because I've been hitting the edge many times. The picture of you, I think it was that night, and then the picture of Harley, the same jacket or whatever, was that intentional?
Oh, 100%.
Okay.
100%. Yeah, like, that was, you know, I know that, like, that jacket of his is, like, iconic. When people think of pro wrestling, they think of the picture of him in the blue and red jacket.
Right.
And I have never, I've always been a Harley Race guy throughout my whole career. Like, I've had his stamp across my back, but I've tried not to use Harley's name.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, I want to walk out on my own merit. Like, I'm a Harley Race guy, but I'm still Trevor fucking Murdoch.
Right.
I felt like, man, like, of any time for me to walk out and pay my tribute at the biggest audience that I could possibly have in the place. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, at any moment, like, this was my moment to say, all right, Harley, I am your guy. I represent you to the world, and I'm going to go out. And that was like, you know, that's the closest I'm ever going to get to walking in his boots. Yeah. You know what I mean? And the only thing that would have made it absolutely 100% perfect, it was 99% perfect. And the only reason why it wasn't 100% was because he wasn't there.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like, that would have been. But
didn't you? I think I saw. Did you won it with the pile driver, right?
I won it. The pile driver led up to the Bulldog.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I did see that. You pile drove him. Yeah, and then the Bulldog off the top or something.
Yeah, man. And there were several instances that I tried to pay homage to the man, and Nick also. You know what I mean? Watching throughout that whole match. We told one hell of a story for 25 minutes and went out there and gave everybody every ounce of what we had. Like, I can't say, like, dude, I left everything out there. On top of the fact, you know, the gimmick was that, you know, my match was, my career was on the line.
Yeah.
If you don't go out there and fight.
So that was the deal? It was a career versus whatever?
First title, yeah.
Okay.
And it was... Yeah, and then Nick had beat me 2 different occasions before that, You know what I mean? So it was a magical moment. You couldn't write that shit any better. Like you couldn't have. Like you couldn't put it together in a book and say everything was going to fall into place the way it did, because it had been 37 years since anybody had wrestled at the Chase, and there had been plenty of companies that have went to the Chase and talked to them about doing shows there and then turning them down.
Really?
Yeah, they just didn't want no part of it. But once the NWA made a phone call, this era's NWA made a phone call, and Bush Beer became a part of it as a sponsor. It just kind of steamrolled into this huge event, and it was, it kind of took a life of its own.
Man, that's cool, man. Very cool.
I gotta, as always, I have a million things I could talk to you about, Trevor. So we'll save that for the next time.
All right.
But, so these are a couple that'll be quick, I think. So one of them is, I get such a rugged Ronnie Garvin vibe from Tim Storm. Is he one of the most underrated dudes or what, man? Like, seriously.
100%.
Yeah.
Like, okay, we're no one's talked about this yet or really brought this up, but let's go back to the 73. Okay, Tim Storm went out there, first match of the night, and wrestled in our version of a hardcore match, which is very PG. You know what I mean? But took some hellacious bumps and really put his body through a beating. And then he comes back at the third match as a commentator, wiping sweat off his brow, speaking as a commentator like nothing had ever happened. Like, what an OG. Like what a badass.
Right.
Nobody really gave him the credit like he deserves. Went out there and, wrestled 20 minutes and then came back on the third match with a suit, jacket on, wiping sweat from his brow, and commentating. Like, what a stud.
I had some good matches with Tim for Riviera that we were talking about earlier. I had some good matches. Only wrestler I know that wears a cup in the ring now. I'll give him that.
Well, maybe with what he's carrying, he needs to protect it.
Maybe so. I've never seen that in my life, but that was.
Well, I ain't never seen it either, bro. But I don't question it.
No, I mean, it is right. I love Tim.
Yeah. I look at that dude and I just think, my God, he's the other kind of guy like you, Trevor, who, if you would have been 15 years ago, that man would be cashing checks and driving the biggest Cadillac. I just feel like it's so cool that the NWA, like, you've got this, like the NWA as we know, and I don't want to take anything away from Rob Conway, Cahagas, or none of those guys, but I feel like it had kind of splintered off to where, like, nobody took it serious anymore. And then Billy takes it over, and please, Cahagas, I think the world of that guy. I'm a Gary Hart mark, so I feel like I could have managed him in a way nobody else could have. But anyway, those guys did their job, and they did it awesome. With that being said, Billy buys NWA. You put it in a studio, man. Like, it just feels like you guys went from, the NWA name went from nothing almost to now you're back into it as a major player in the game. Tell me, like, do you get that feeling, or are you just nose to the grindstone right now?
No, it's no, I 100% feel like we're in the game. It took somebody, because here's the thing, like, the NWA, it seems as if it just kind of popped up out of nowhere, but those guys for 4 years had to go around and deal with the legal issues of where NWA was. And Wolfie, you know what I'm talking about. There was a lot of companies out there that were kind of bastardizing the name of NWA, and Billy didn't want that. If he's going to create a product, he wants to be the only one that is in control of that. Like, that's, anybody would want to be that way. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Once he was able to do that and bring it all under one umbrella, he had the finances and the wherewithal to see, okay, we need to give this a different look. And what look can we use that would be different? Well, let's think about this. Well, the old school look worked, and we can modernize it a little bit and give it a modernized feel to it. But he rolled the dice on what was successful before would work now, and it did. We're not completely like Georgia Championship Wrestling, but if you notice, we're starting to try to bring back a little bit of that flair, a little bit of that old school feeling. Things that, one of the things I remember vividly at 73 is talking to a lot of like younger dads who watched it with their dads, NWA, and how now they're sharing it with their kids. We also deliver a product that like you can for sure 99% of the time sit down with your whole family and watch.
Right.
And you really can't say that about a lot of pro wrestling anymore.
Yeah.
And families feel comfortable with that. Now, do I say we don't do rated? Am I saying we don't do rated R stuff? At the right time, right place, everything means something.
Yeah.
Right.
But 99% of the time, you can watch with your whole family.
I mean, wrestling's always been a little bit R-rated, and that's kind of the thing that, like I said, growing up watching Memphis, the blood, the brawls, that's wrestling to me, man. You know, that's wrestling to me. And when we started getting away from that, I don't know. That's what we drew money with that in the 90s. You know. PG-13 against the Rock and Roll Express. We drew money with blood. I mean, you know, it works, man. It works, and people want to see a fight. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong.
No, you're 100% on that. Like that's what was the entertaining value of our business, and it went to a different direction where it was more focused on the entertainment than the wrestling part.
Yeah.
To the point where. A company literally took wrestling out of their name.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know a company.
You know what? I read this thing. Oh, what was that I read the other day where it's all these words you can't say for WWE, and one of them was wrestling. And I'm like, what does the second W stand for? It's wrestling.
Right. Well, I guess they got tired of that argument and just took the whole word out. They were like,
That's hilarious to me. That's hilarious to me.
But that's what. Okay, and I'm okay with them doing that now. Like, okay, that's the direction you guys want to go. That's fine. Like, you guys be in your own little world. We're going to do our thing.
Yeah,
and we're going to stay within our bubble that works for us, and we're going to give everybody the alternative. Yeah. Because the more they go left, we're going to go right.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
I know Jimmy's got some current affairs he's fixing to throw at you. I'm so glad I ain't got to deal with this. When we don't have a guest on, he throws these at me, and I'm like, oh my God. So
he may not like the answers I give him.
So. Well, before we get into current affairs, and thank you for the toss there, Wolfie. That was perfect timing. I always like to ask something that puts you on your toes as well. So current affairs is coming up, ladies and gentlemen, and I appreciate your patience. But I want to hear this from you because here's the thing, man. I don't feel like I'm putting you on the spot here, but just off the top of your head, give me your Mount Rushmore of wrestling.
You got to throw Harley in there. I'm going to put Steamboat up there because he's the only guy that's ever been babyface his whole career. And like talk about when you talk about as a wrestler and you go, well, I need to learn how to sell and be a babyface. He's the first name in that dictionary. Yeah. And so I think Ricky Steamboat needs to be up there for sure. I think as much as I hate to say it, like you got to put Vince up there as well too, because of the impact he's had on pro wrestling, the good and the bad. I'm not going to sit here and bury him the whole time. You know what I mean? He really he carried the business for a long time. And then my fourth one, man, let's see here. That's a hard one. It kind of goes between Dusty Rhodes and I know people are going to get on to me, but you guys remember the missing link?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Dewey Bravo.
Yeah. You talk about a guy doing a gimmick at a time when people didn't do gimmicks and legitimately put fear in people's hearts. You know what I mean? I know, it seems like a random name, but I remember as a young guy, the power that guy had over me when I was watching him on TV. Like, I was just extremely scared of him. And then, of course, as you get older, you get smartened up to the business, and you get a part of the business, and you realize, like, how good he was for a guy his size, and what power he was able to possess to make me believe in the ring.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, thank you for that, Trevor. So as we say,
so I don't get any heat. Wait a minute, real quick. So I don't get any heat from your guys' viewers. I'm not comparing Dusty Rhodes and the Missing Link. I understand they're two different fucking ends of the spectrum. But Jesus Christ, guys, like, don't fucking bury me saying that. Oh, Trevor's stupid. I understand.
No. Right,
if you don't say that stuff, though, nowadays, Wolfie, if you don't say that, like, somebody's going to crucify you and put words in your mouth.
I got you, man. Yeah. I believe what you're saying. No.
Okay.
Missing Link was good, man. And the only thing is, like, see, I told you earlier, I'm a Memphis guy, so Missing Link was a Texas guy, so I didn't see him a whole bunch, man. I mean, my Mount Rushmore and yours would be a little bit different, and, Jimmy knows this. Road Warriors, Mr. Perfect, Randy Savage, those are my fucking people. But, yeah, you out your way.
It was world class, is what I watched.
World class.
Sunday morning was world class for me.
You had the Von Erichs and shit.
Gentleman Chris Adams, Iceman King Clarkson.
And I met the Iceman. What a cool dude he was, man. I met him at a casino. God, I can't remember how many years back that was. I never wrestled him or anything, but man, he was so cool.
I got to wrestle him, like, I don't know, was it 3 or 4 years ago? Jerry Bostic brought me in down there for world-class pro wrestling.
Oh, yeah?
And I got to wrestle against Iceman King Parsons and the two Von Erich boys. And, of course, I called the fucking punches, what I mean? You know the gimmick, man. Like, I want it all, man. Give it to me. I love the beat for you. I want it.
Absolutely. That's awesome.
So that was my little moment there.
That's awesome.
That is awesome. To me, just think about those times of Memphis, world class, AWA, NWA, Crockett. I mean, think about it. You could live in a state or 4 states, let's just say, and you could see the wrestling, and that wrestling was the world to you. And then, and you could then see something else and say, okay, I remember the Remco wrestling figures that were like the He-Man size, and I got the Road Warriors, and that forever changed my life after that. I was a Road Warrior fan because I was a Ricky and Robert fan, but then the Road Warriors came along. And to me, it was crazy, the idea of how awesome one territory was just for a few states, and how it'll probably never be like that again, but in a good way, I guess, because, like you say, there's AEW, WWE, NWA, Impact. You can all be on TV. You can all have your spot in the world, and there's enough fans that everybody can just, take it all in. It's a beautiful thing. So anyway, speaking on that, I'm going to lead into current affairs. So DJ, hit the music.
It's a current affair. It's a current affair. Love it in color. It's a current affair. Love it in color.
All right, we're back with current affairs, and Trevor Murdoch, the NWA Heavyweight Champion. Trevor, I promise these aren't difficult, but my first current affair is you're the NWA Heavyweight Champion, and with that comes some definite responsibility, as you said earlier. Now that this forbidden door has kicked open, and let's even pretend like Vince is allowing people to play along, who are some, heavyweight champions you could see yourself matching up well with?
Right now, you know what I mean? Like first off, anything's possible, especially in pro wrestling. That's the great thing about it. Anything's possible. But I think I could, right now Big E is on fire, and I think I could have some really good matches with him. Also, you've got, I'm the world champion, man, so I'm going to go after the other world champions. You know what I mean? I think I can tell a great story with Kenny Omega. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
I think I'm a different cat when it comes to pro wrestling. I can mix really well with anybody, big or small. That's the one.
That's what makes a great wrestler.
Dude, that's what Harley always told me. You got to be able to work. You know, as world champion, you got to have a great match with anybody and everybody.
Yeah.
And I really think, like, you know, especially with the way people perceive me, I don't look like the wrestler of 2021. I look like the wrestler of the 1980s. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But that's where I surprise people. You know, I've got this little saying, you know, don't let the fat fool you. There's an athlete in this body. I've learned to be tough, and I can take my shots. One of my best defenses is I can take a hell of an ass whooping and keep coming back. And I think I could match up with either one of those guys and have a great match with either one of them.
I think those are great ideas. Let's book it anytime, you know. So that being said, you know, the Forbidden Door, are there any upcoming plans that you can tell us about that might be including another company? I've heard some rumblings.
There's nothing I can tell you. Are there conversations? Are there conversations? Yeah.
Doggone it. I thought I could sneak it out of you, man. Sorry.
No, man, let's be real. No, there's some serious conversations. But, you know, Wolfie knows, like, there's got to be details worked out and a lot of that and how that works and make sure that it's great for everybody. It's amazing. As soon as I became world champion, the emails and the text of everybody going, all right, I can, I want a shot. You know what I mean? Everybody wants a shot.
Hey, Trevor.
Right. You know what I mean? And, of course, you know, the brother calls.
Yeah.
And you know, but I'm in a different field now. And it comes down to not only, you know, everybody knows I'm willing to show up, but now everybody's got to pay for it. You know, and that's, there's, you know, I'm not only bringing me, I'm bringing the world title with me, and that changes the whole game on everything. Everybody says that, you know, I just put out this new shirt, man. Everybody's a tough guy until they meet one.
I love that. Yeah.
It's the truth, though. Like, a lot of these guys, and Wolfie, you know this as well as I do. All these guys, oh man, I want to be world champion. Oh man, I can take him. But until you're standing in the ring across from the world champion and looking at him and looking at the look on his face, knowing what this guy's willing to do to keep his world title,
right?
People tend to not be as tough and not want the opportunity. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Who's the person, seriously, that you went in the ring against going, fuck, I don't really want to work with this motherfucker tonight? You know what I mean? Like, who's the tough? I'll tell you mine. Is Perry Saturn. Perry Saturn used to beat my ass every fucking night in Memphis. Who is yours?
Bob Holly.
I've always
now, let me explain this before I get a fucking phone call from Bob going, you trying to bury me? Bob's old school through and through. You know what I mean? And Bob is like us in the manner that people want to fight, I'm going to fucking give it to them.
Right.
And so Bob lays that shit in there. And I like that. But Bob also is he gets into the mode, you know what I mean? A little bit like Perry Saturn, a little bit gets into like this lunatic mode, like I am kicking ass. And you have to hit him back hard to kind of get him to snap out of it.
Right.
And I remember a couple times, you know, he was laying the wood to me and I had to crack him back. And he's like, everything okay, Trevor? I was like, I'm trying to wake you up, you fucking psychotic.
Yeah.
Quit hitting out of me hard. You know, Bob's a great guy.
The Harris boys used to tell me that. Donnie used to tell me that. He goes, for a little motherfucker, he said, you always hit me back hard. He said, I've never had people hit me like you do. And I said, well, motherfucker, you're trying to kill me.
Some guys don't know their own strength. And Bob is one of those guys. And me and Bob have the utmost respect for each other. And the matches I had with Bob were some of my, like, battle-wise, when they gave us an opportunity, some great fucking matches.
Yeah.
And he was another guy, like, you know, he expected a certain amount of aggression, and he would take that same aggression as well, too. There were several times that I thought I plugged Bob, and I'm like, oh, yeah, I'm going to have to answer for that one in the back. And him never say a word, shake my hand, good match, brother, and walk off. You know, and it's like, okay, but Bob would really lay the wood to me, but in the same sense, he liked to have it brought back to him like that.
Yeah. Who trained Bob? You know,
I'm I'm not sure, man, but he's another guy like didn't get enough credit for being with the company as long as
he was good, man. He was good. Man, Trevor, thank you so much for coming on here, man.
Thank you for having me.
I told Jimmy, I said, man, I got Trevor on here, man. This is gonna be good. It's been a minute.
I appreciate you having me. I had a blast.
Yeah, and seriously, man, congratulations on because I know that your career had kind of, I don't know, I thought you had kind of gotten out of the business or whatever, and so now I guess you're back and
I was fucking world. You know as well as I do. There's those shows out there that you can work where you don't. There's just not a lot of publication. Yeah, I stayed in the business enough to not keep the ring rust off, but I wasn't setting off anybody's alarms. And it just right time, right place, right moment. Awesome, it all works out for a reason.
That's awesome, man. I can assure you, I'm out. I'm broken down and beat up, man. Just had a heart attack 6 weeks ago.
I heard, man. I'm thankful and I'm blessed that we're having this conversation, man. Please, please, Jesus Christ, man, take care of yourself.
Yeah, man, it was crazy. But at any rate, man, thank you.
Thank you so much, Trevor, for coming on. We greatly appreciate it. You're welcome back anytime, and to be honest, and like I said at the start of it, I've never spoken directly to the current and reigning NWA Heavyweight Champion. And I just want to say it's been an absolute pleasure, man. So thank you.
Right on, man. Thank you guys for having me on. This has been a blast. I could sit and talk wrestling all day long. So thank you guys for having me on.
Thanks, Trevor. Appreciate you.
And now a word from our sponsor.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Give Me Back My Pro Wrestling, the podcast that's based on the old school but can still help you find the good stuff from today. Jimmy Street and the Plastic Chic, Jared, are the undisputed tag team champions of the wrestling podcast world. From thought-provoking topics to superstar interviews to action figure expertise. This team does it all, and all they ask is, give me back my pro wrestling! Every other Thursday, wherever you listen to podcasts.
That's right, it's the talk of Middle Tennessee, the channel you love to hate and the channel you hate to love. It's Brian Turner from Brian Turner's VHS Rehab. And if you're looking for matches from Wolfie D to Jerry Lawler to Dusty Rhodes and the team that put a pimp before your eyes and a goatee between your thighs, Booty Call and Athena, go to lostwrestling.com. See, I made it easy for you. Brian Turner's VHS Rehab. Booyah.
Join me, Gene Jackson, for the Jackson Interaction Podcast, where I'll be doing one-on-one interviews with people from the world of professional wrestling, as well as stand-up comedy. You can get them anywhere podcasts are available in both video and audio form, but you can find them all at genejacksonpod.com.
So that was another great episode. Hey, Wolfie, tell them where they can find you on social media.
Jimmy, they can find me in the club, bottle full of bub. I'm just kidding. They can find me on Facebook. My personal page is Warren Wolf, WOLFE. I'm on Instagram at WarrenWolf13.
You can always find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube at Live Wolfie D. Here's the thing. Wolfie always has offers for his autographed photos. He has a selection of some awesome photos from throughout his career that he will autograph and personalize any way that you want him to. Just contact him either directly at his personal Facebook page or through any one of our other pages, and we'll make sure you get in contact directly with Wolfie. Get those photos, right, Wolfie?
Yeah, I've got some good stuff on there, to help with the podcast.
Folks, if you can't get out to a show to meet Wolfie D, there's nothing like that, especially for the fans of PG-13 and Wolfie D. And before we go, you can always find me, your host, Jimmy Street, at James Rock Street on Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube.
And hey, Jimmy, before we go real quick, I just want to add in there, from the bottom of my heart, I really appreciate First of all, the work you've done for this podcast. You have worked your butt off. Secondly, the people that are liking the page. Beyond that, even more is the people that are listening, and we really appreciate that.
Yeah, and remember, guys, the podcast drops a new episode every Monday at noon, and our past episodes are streaming now on demand on all major podcast formats. Thanks again.
I got a cap for your dome. He got a cap for your dome. I got a cap for your dome. He got a cap for your dome. He got a cap for your dome.
And here we go. The original white boy that came out sagging, not bragging, don't be hating, cause I'm spitting the truth. Still livin' in color, bum rush your mother, utilize a hubcap, unlike any other. Back in the day, I was NOD, and I was P to the G, plus the 1 and the 3. In case you forgot, they call me Wolfie D. Been cloned and copied so many times, tired of suckers taking credit for what is mine. You know who you are, without me name dropping. Wrestling's first white boy coming out hip-hop. Been doing it like this since 92. Laid low for a while and you thought I was through. Listen real close to these rhymes that I've injected. This shit's so sick it makes your ears get infected. Mad skills, no faking, there is no one great. Cause I'm bringing more folks than Obi-Wan or Vader. Not here to play games, so you better beware. You don't like me, so what? I really don't care. Like time I keep ticking and I can't be stopped. You sucker step to the side unless you wanna get dropped. When my finish, I'll straight knock you out. Please allow me to tell you what it's all about. Gonna wind it up, then I'm driving it home. It's Wolfie D, baby. Huh. I got a cap for your dome. I got a cap for your dome. You got a cap for your dome. You got a cap for your dome.
This has been a James Rock Street production.